Hello and welcome back to another episode here at the Pilgrim's Well. We're continuing to follow our pilgrim through the Pilgrim's Progress. Last time we were at the Palace Beautiful, a couple of episodes, and we saw how John Bunyan was describing Christian's preparation and all the things he was learning from the three ladies, and then he saw the weapons and everything there. And I think that depicts kind of this challenge in the Christian life, right? Where we go, we have times of comfort and times of strengthening and times of rest. And then the Lord allows us to be challenged again. Well, our pilgrim today is certainly going to be challenged as we come to his battle with Apollyon. So let's pick it up and see what happens. Now, Christian had not gone far in this valley of humiliation before he was severely tested. For he noticed a very foul fiend coming over the field to meet him. His name was Apollyon, which means destroyer. At this, Christian became afraid and immediately pondered whether he ought to retreat or stand his ground. But on further consideration, he realized that he had no armor on his back. Therefore, to expose himself there in fleeing would probably give this foe the advantage with the use of piercing darts. So he determined to risk confrontation with his enemy. For he further thought, if I only had in mind the saving of my life, then it would still be best to stand my ground. So he continued on, and Apollyon met him. Now this monster was exceedingly hideous to behold. He was clothed with scales like a fish, of which he was most proud. He had wings like a dragon, feet like a bear, and out of his belly belched forth fire and smoke through a mouth like that of a lion. When he drew near to Christian, he looked down upon him with a contemptuous, sneering expression, and then commenced to question him. "From where have you come? And where are you going?" Christian: "I have come from the place of all evil, the city of destruction, and am heading toward the city of Zion." "So from this I conclude that you are one of my subjects, since the whole of that region belongs to me. I am its prince and God. This being true, then how is it that you have run away from your king? Were it not for the fact that my plan is for you to serve me further, I would right now strike you to the ground with one smashing blow." Christian responded, "It is true that I was born in your territories, but your employment was hard, and your wages were such that a man could not properly live on them, since the wages of sin is death. Therefore, when I came to adulthood, I did what other thoughtful people ought to do, and that is, seek for better employment." Apollyon: "You understand that no prince worthy of the name will easily release his subjects, and so neither will I let you go at this time. But since you have complained of your duties and a salary, let me encourage you to return. I personally promise that every attempt will be made by our government to improve your wages." Christian: "But I have yielded my loyalty to another, even to the king of princes. So in all fairness, how can I possibly return to you?" Apollyon: "You have done that which the proverb describes, namely, exchanged a bad for a worse. Though it is quite common for those who profess themselves to be his servants, after a while they slip away from his employment and return again to me. Do this, and I assure you that all will be well." Christian: "But I have given him my faith and sworn allegiance. So how then can I go back on my word and not be hanged as a traitor?" Apollyon: "You did the very same thing to me. Nevertheless, I am willing to let the past be forgotten, if you will simply turn once more and go back to the city of destruction." Christian: What I promised you then was in my nonage, as an immature youth. And beside this, I regard my prince, under whose banners I now stand, as able to absolve me from your charges. And even further, he is able to pardon whatever I did in serving you. And besides all this, oh, you destroying Apollyon, to be perfectly truthful, I like his employment, his wages, his servants, his government, his company, and country infinitely more than yours. Therefore stop trying to change my mind and leave me alone. I am the Lord's servant, and I am determined to follow him. Apollyon. That is all very well, but consider what I will be like when your spirit is low, and at the same time you have much to encounter in the way you are going. You are aware that, for the most part, his servants come to a wretched end, because they are transgressors against me and my ways. How many of them there are who have been shamefully put to death. And furthermore, while you count his employment better than mine, yet he has never come from his heavenly residence to rescue any of his servants out of our hands. On the other hand, the entire world well knows that I have so many times used my power and fraudulent schemes to deliver those who have faithfully served me, even when they were captured by me and his followers. Still, I have rescued them, and so I will also deliver you. Christian. His present restraint in delivering them is for the purpose of testing their love, which is proving whether they will be loyal to him to that end. And as for the sorry end that you declare is their destiny, why, they are assured of receiving their future glory. In fact, they do not present deliverance, rather they are content to wait for their glory in the future. Then they shall certainly have it when their prince comes in glory along with the angels. Apollyon. But you have already been unfaithful in serving your new lord, so how is it possible for you to receive any wages from him? Christian. Tell me, O Apollyon, in what ways have I been unfaithful to him? Apollyon. Very soon after leaving the city of destruction, you were quickly discouraged, when you almost drowned in the slough of despond. You made several wrong attempts to be rid of your burden, whereas you should have waited until your prince relieved you of it himself. Through shameful oversleeping, you lost a precious personal possession, and you were nearly persuaded to turn back to the side of those fierce lions. And when you converse as you travel of what you have heard and seen, your inward desire is for personal glory with regard to everything you say or do. Christian. All that you say is true. In fact, there's much more that you have left out. But the prince who I serve and honor is very merciful and most willing to forgive. Beside this, these misdemeanors were committed in your territory, where I was educated in them, and as a consequence, I have grieved over them and repented over ever doing such things. Furthermore, I have received a full pardon regarding these crimes from my prince. Apollyon, now very angry. I am an enemy of this prince of yours. I hate his person, his laws, and his people. For this reason I am purposely come out here to oppose you. Christian. Apollyon, be very careful what you are doing, for I am in the king's highway, the way of holiness, so watch yourself. Apollyon, now defiantly astride the whole width of the way. I am void of fear in this manner, so prepare yourself to die, for I swear by my infernal iniquity that you shall go no further. Here I will spill your soul. At this, Apollyon was quickly to throw a flaming dart directly at his breast. But Christian used a shield that was in his hand and deflected it, and so avoided the danger. Then in response, Christian drew his sword, since he now realized it was time to stir himself. But Apollyon swiftly hurled a hail of darts that notwithstanding all the skill that Christian could muster to avoid, yet inflicted wounds on his head as well as hands and foot. Now this assault caused Christian to retreat a little, so that Apollyon pressed more forcefully. Yet Christian took courage and resisted as courageously as he could. This agonizing combat extended beyond half a day, even until Christian was almost exhausted. For you should know that Christian, on account of his wounds, inevitably grew weaker and weaker. Then Apollyon, recognizing his opportunity, began to press closer upon Christian, and now wrestling with him, heavily threw him to the ground. As a result, Christian's sword flew out of his hand. Then Apollyon gleefully exclaimed, "I am sure of you now!" And immediately he drew close, intending to inflict a mortal wound. At this point, Christian began to despair of staying alive. But as God would have it, while Apollyon was preparing his final blow so as to destroy this good man, yet Christian was enabling to nimbly stretch out his hand and regain grip of his sword. At the same time he cried out, "Do not rejoice against me, O my implacable enemy, for when I fall, I shall yet rise." And he gave Apollyon a deathly thrust which caused him to draw back, as if he had received a fatal wound. Now in perceiving this, Christian moved in upon him while declaring, "Even so, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." As a result, Apollyon quickly spread out his dragon's wings and fled away, so that Christian saw him no more. Now, unless any man had seen and heard the intensity of this combat, as I, Bunyan the narrator, did, he could not possibly imagine the yelling and hideous roaring of Apollyon, as well as his dragon-like manner of speaking. On the other hand, what sighs and groans that were there that burst forth from Christian's heart during the whole encounter. I never saw him so much as giving one pleasant look, that is, until he was aware of his wounding of Apollyon with his two-edged sword. But then he smiled broadly, and at the same time looked upward. However, on the whole, this was the most dreadful sight that I, Bunyan, had ever seen. So when the battle was over, Christian declared, "I will here give thanks to him who has delivered me out of the mouth of the lion, that is Apollyon." And so he spoke with gratitude as follows: "Great Beelzebub, the captain of this fiend, designed my ruin. Therefore to this end he sent him harnessed out, and he with rage that hellish was did fiercely me engage. But blessed Michael helped me, and I, by dint of blow of sword, did quickly make him fly. Therefore to him let me give lasting praise, and thank and bless his name always." Then there came to Christian a hand, in which there were some of the leaves of the tree of life, and taking these he applied them to the wound that he had received in battle. As a result, he was immediately healed. He also sat down at the place to eat bread and drink from the bottle that had early been given to him. So being refreshed, he prepared himself for moving forward on his journey. Now his sword was already drawn in his hand, for he said, "I do not know if some other enemy may come near." Even so, he did not meet with any further opposition from Apollyon, that is, throughout the remainder of this valley. That's the battle of Christian with Apollyon. What a battle it was, wasn't it? That was quite exciting. The fight and the strength, and first that discussion between Apollyon and Christian, and Apollyon trying to lure him back to his old paths, and when he couldn't succeed, suddenly this rage bursted out, right? Apollyon went from kind of this politician that tries to lure people in, and then he couldn't hide it anymore, his hatred for the King, Jesus Christ anymore, and he bursted forth in anger and started to attack Christian. Now, this colorful display of the battle has a very important purpose in the book of John Bunyan and what he's describing. And it's also very important for us as Christians because even though we don't walk with a physical sword on our side and the breastplate that is not visible on our chest, we're not fighting with the weapons of human warfare. It is a real battle. And did you notice why Christian couldn't run back? Because there was nothing on his back. There's no retreat in the Christian life, but there are definitely battles to face. And I think that we might not always be aware of how severe these battles can be. These battles with the devil, with darkness, with the principalities and powers of this air of which which Paul in Ephesians writes about, they're real. They're actual, real battles. Now, they're not with a physical sword, but they're battles that go on in the mind and in the heart, and sometimes even will affect to the point that we will end up bleeding. These are real battles that we wrestle with the enemy that tries to bring us back to our old lives. But Christian used the sword. The sword is a picture of the Word. It's the Word of God that we can use to attack the enemies that come upon us. Now, I want you to remember the sequence of things, right? The order of things. First, he was in the palace called Beautiful. He was prepared. These were times of refreshment and of ease and of learning and of excitement and of comfort. And then the battle comes. Our Christian life is kind of like that. And sometimes we'll look at it and say, well, yesterday was a much better day than today. Yesterday I was comfortable. Today it's hard. Remember, God is in control. God knows when to strengthen us and when to allow us to be tested. Even to the point that we fall down and begin to lose hope, God will allow us to grab to that sword of God's word when we keep reading once again and strike back. And then that broad smile of the Christian appears, that he is reminded that the Lord has helped him another battle, another step closer to the promised land. Next time we'll pick it up and see how Christian continues on his journey. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.